I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We'll get right into it. And like Taylor said, so we can make this super informal. So if you have questions as we go, feel free to chime in and ask. Don't worry about interrupting me. And then obviously Taylor's going to monitor the chat. So if you want to submit questions in the chat as we go, she can interrupt me and ask those questions. So we'll jump right into it. Now I know everyone with IPS is familiar with Hanwha, but for the customers on board that aren't, I'll give you a quick overview of who Hanwha is. So I always like to tell people, especially end users that haven't heard of us, is that Hanwha is truly the largest company that you've never heard of. It's a South Korean based company. But Hanwha Group is a global Fortune 500 company. So if you think it's one of the 500 largest companies in the entire world, and it's really not a household name because they do a lot in the business to business world. So we started as a defense contractor, making military equipment, explosives, still doing that stuff today. But we're in aviation, aerospace, chemicals. We're the world's largest solar panel manufacturer. So a lot of neat stuff is happening, but we really don't get into consumer grade products at all. So as I jump into it, you'll see the word Hanwha Vision here. So that is the name of the video surveillance arm of the company. So that's what I'm a part of. And I'm truly the local rep for Hanwha covering Central and Southern Ohio. So I'll be the main point of contact for any projects that are happening in that territory. Now we also have a representation for Hanwha throughout the entire US and actually globally too. So if we have any projects outside of Ohio, we can certainly get support to help you out there too. I won't go through this whole timeline, but I'll touch on a couple quick things here. So we've been around for a long time. So 33 years ago, almost 34 since we're stepping into 2024 here in a couple weeks, but started a while ago with video surveillance under the name Samsung TechWin. So everyone knows the name Samsung. You probably have a Samsung phone or a TV or a refrigerator or something like that. So Samsung spun up our video surveillance division. And back in 2015, they decided they wanted to step away from a lot of the business to business sectors that they were in and focus on those things you know Samsung for, those TVs and phones. So they decided to sell it off to another large Korean company, just like themselves. So Hanwha was the buyer there, and we took it over. And a lot has changed since then. Samsung was doing a lot of manufacturing, believe it or not, in China of their components. Hanwha took that over and said, all right, we're going to pull everything out of China and move it to South Korea and Vietnam. So I'll get into what we're doing for manufacturing here. And I'm going to fly through some slides just for the sake of time and keeping us on schedule here. But what Hanwha's doing for manufacturing is very unique in the industry. So we have our own factory, South Korea and Vietnam, as I mentioned, but Hanwha's truly manufacturing the components to the cameras and the cameras themselves in these factories. So most other manufacturers can't actually say that. Throughout the industry, there's a lot of contract manufacturing going on, meaning other brands of cameras might be sourcing their chips from one third-party company, sourcing their lenses from another third-party company, and all those different components that go into the camera, and then simply assembling them and slapping their name on it. Where we're completely different. So we're making those chips ourselves in this factory you see here. We're cutting the glass for the lenses. We're making all of those components in-house. So soup to nuts, we really control that whole supply chain. And especially nowadays, it's more important than ever because of long lead times. So a lot of our competitors have some struggles with delivering cameras on time, and that could be any one of the components getting held up in the supply chain that's hurting them. So we can kind of control that supply chain ourselves and really adjust as demand increases. So In this slide, the bullet points here kind of create a cool story too. So obviously I mentioned Hanwha factories, it's Hanwha employees working in those factories. The machines that are making our equipment are made by a company called Hanwha Precision Machinery. And of course, we're powering the factories with Hanwha Q-cell solar panels. So I mentioned Hanwha's doing a lot of business to business stuff. And so we kind of create our own ecosystem and utilize all of those different companies to help create these cameras. So that's the quick overview of who Hanwha is. I want to get into some of the technologies that we're making, and I'll start with analytics. So when it comes to the terminology AI or artificial intelligence, every industry, every technology seems to call something AI nowadays. So I'll sort of break it down and show you what Hanwha truly means when we're talking about AI at the camera level. And so the first level of AI in our cameras, and by the way, we really truly build a lot of processing power into these cameras to be able to support these analytics at the camera level, versus some of our competitors doing this at the server level, requiring you to get a special high-end server, which can of course up the costs of the system. So the fact that we're doing this at a camera level is a big deal, but to get into the details of what AI truly is, we're able to detect objects that we care about. And so what those objects are is face, person, vehicle, and license plate. So you can see those four objects there. So the cameras have been factory trained. So we essentially show them hundreds of thousands of images of each of these objects in the factory, so that when you deploy them in the field, they already know what a face is, what a person is, a vehicle, etc. You don't have to train it when it's already up there. So this is a fun little demo video down here. When we first launched this technology, we set it up in an aquarium, and you can see it doesn't care about the fish in the background or the light refractions or any of that movement back there. It's only putting the bounding box around the people and the faces, because that's truly all we care about. Now, where we can take AI to the next level is by collecting attributes on each of those objects. So when that camera detects a person, we're able to get information of what gender that person is, what their top clothing color is, what their bottom clothing color is, whether or not they have a bag, a hat, glasses. So all of that is being collected by the camera. And then when we're looking at a vehicle, that camera's smart enough to know whether that's a car, a truck, a bus, a motorcycle, a bicycle, and then of course what color that vehicle is. So where all of this comes into play is when we want to do forensic searching after the fact. So here we are in our video management system Wave, which I'll show you here with a live demo in a few minutes. We're able to get in there, and of course I'll pause it to kind of show what's happening here, but we're searching for a vehicle. They want to see the truck, and they're selecting the color white here. So I'll go ahead and hit play, and you can see it's pulling all of the video clips with thumbnails of when it saw a white truck. So this can be extremely important if an incident happens on your property and a witness tells you, okay, it was a white truck that we suspect was the culprit here. So you can go into your system, and if you have hundreds or thousands of vehicles driving through your property on a daily basis, without having the ability to search on type of vehicle and color, it could take you hours or days to find that incident. So being able to do that search really allows you to narrow it down very quickly, find the thumbnail that you think's the best one, and then of course we can watch the associated video with it as well. Now this technology, while it is happening at our camera level and it does work well with our VMS, which I'll get into in a minute, like I said, we do integrate this with a few other third-party VMSs. So if you currently have Milestone, Genetec, Exact Vision, at your facility, this technology on our cameras would also work on those VMSs. So kind of moving along with AI. So there's a few things we can do with AI to truly make the camera performance or the picture even better. So I'll hit play on this video. And what's happening here is we're using the AI to adjust shutter speed on the left side, whereas you can see a traditional camera on the right side. And down below, we took some screenshots of pauses in that video, so I can even pause it there. And you can see on the left-hand side, the word WiseNet there is very clear. On the right-hand side, it's somewhat blurry. So what you see on the right-hand side is actually very common for cameras industry-wide. When an object's moving quickly through a scene, you go to pause that video because you want that detailed face shot to share with the police, or you want that detail of the vehicle or whatever it might be. When you pause that video, if that's moving through the scene, you might get a little bit of a blur there. You might not actually get that good detail. So the fact that we're able to utilize the AI to know, hey, that's a person there, let's adjust the shutter speed to make sure we can get that crisp and clear. That's a big deal, because what's going to be a better image to share with the police officers? It can be the one on the left or the one on the right. So there's that for daytime, and then for nighttime, we can do sort of the same thing. We can reduce motion blur and noise in the image when we're in that black and white image at night. So same idea here. You can see on the left-hand side, nice and clear. Right-hand side with the traditional camera, it's somewhat blurry there. And then lastly, something else that's sort of happening in the background as we utilize an AI camera is we're significantly reducing the bandwidth. And if you're not familiar with bandwidth is essentially the size of that data that's streaming over the network or that's recording to your server. So being able to compress the video based on people and vehicles in the scene instead of just based on general motion, it's going to save you a lot on storage, and it's going to save you a lot on bandwidth across your network. All right, so I will hop out of that. And we'll talk about license plate recognition. So with license plate recognition, if you're familiar with how this technology works, typically you want a camera to be zoomed in pretty tight on the field of view, and we're focusing on license plates here. So ideally with a license plate camera, we can go ahead and pull that license plate data. And the camera's smart enough to have the analytics built in to know that that's ABC 123 or whatever that license plate says, so that you can go in and you can search for plates. So if you want to look for that ABC 123 license plate, you can go in after the fact, you can search for it and pull that video clip up. Now, what we're doing with our Rode AI cameras, we're actually taking that to the next level, where we're not only pulling that license plate data, but we're giving information on the make of that vehicle, the model of the vehicle, and the color of it. So we can know that's a blue Ford Fusion or a silver Kia Soul or a black Chevy Silverado, right? So that just adds to the forensic searching piece, where after the fact you want to search for that black Chevy Silverado, you can go into the system, search for that, and pull the plate from there. And we can even whitelist plates, we can blacklist plates, and then searching. So here's just kind of a screen share of what it looks like to search. So you've got your search bar there, and here they search for the red Mercedes-Benz, and they pulled up every time a red Mercedes pulled through that field of view of that camera. So we're really doing a lot of neat stuff as far as analytics go.
Brandon, I have a question that someone texted me.
Sure.
With the road cameras, are they able to, if the driver is visible, are they able to pick up any features of the driver, or are they really only looking at license plate, car type, bigger things
So
like that?
it's a good question. Yeah, so the main focus is the vehicle for that camera. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say you won't get the person. There's a good chance you probably will, but there's a lot of factors that go into that when we're looking through a windshield. It's what the lighting conditions look like, how the sun's reflecting off that windshield. That can create issues. Tinted windows can create issues for seeing that driver. So what I would want to do if our goal is to see the driver is place another camera there with the sole focus of seeing into that vehicle. And if we do that, we can kind of dial it in as far as the image settings go so that we can truly get through that windshield pretty accurately and see what that driver looks like. But I guess the short answer to it would be we would want to look at placing another camera to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So another piece of technology I want to talk about. So I spoke about AI, and by the way, AI is built into a lot of our cameras, but not all of them. So if you have a use case for it, definitely consult your IPS sales rep, and they can of course get me involved as needed to make sure we're providing the correct camera for the analytics that you're looking for. But I also wanted to talk about multi-sensor cameras today. And reason being is the popularity of multi-sensor cameras is growing like crazy. I would say most projects, most installs these days will have at least one multi-sensor, in most cases probably several, per facility, per property. And the reason for that is a multi-sensor camera has multiple lenses in it, but it's still one camera. So it's one cable ran to that location. It's one piece of hardware being mounted in that area. So I always cringe when I'm walking a site and I see an old install and I see maybe three, four, five cameras in one area, maybe on a pole in a parking lot or on the corner of a building. Because we can easily solve that with one camera that has multiple lenses. So, there's a lot of savings to be had as far as labor goes, as far as cabling goes, as far as licensing goes with your recording system. But almost more importantly, I think aesthetically, it looks a lot better on a building than stacking multiple cameras right next to each other. So a few different models that we have. We've got the dual sensor. So this is two lenses built into one housing. So it's one camera, two lenses. And I'll kind of jump through this video a little bit, but here's an example outside. They're really looking in two different directions with that camera. And we've got some AI built into this model too, so we can detect the vehicles and the people. And as I jump forward, so here's a example inside where we've got one camera looking two different directions. We can look down a hallway on one and then look in sort of a general lobby area on the other. But we've also seen this used right in the middle of a hallway, look in two different directions. But yeah, definitely a lot of use cases for the dual sensor. Of course, we have a 3 sensor as well. So great for if you want to set it up as a 180 in an area or look down 3 different hallways where you have a 3-way intersection there. Of course, we've got several different quad models. What's nice about some of our quad models is we have what's called PTRZ built into the camera. So PTRZ stands for pan, tilt, rotate, zoom, meaning we can do all of those functions from the head end. So I can sit here at a computer with a couple clicks of the mouse and I can move those lenses around. And the whole purpose of this is for setup, right? So it's not meant to be moved on a daily basis or anything like that. But the idea here is to save on labor for the install, but also, and possibly more importantly, as you're seeing changes in the future. So let's say we have one of these up on a pole in the parking lot and there's a tree nearby, but it was installed in the wintertime when there's no leaves on that tree, but springtime rolls around, that tree starts to bloom. Now all of a sudden one of those lenses is completely covered by that tree. Well, instead of calling up IPS and getting a quote on them to pull a lift out and get up on that lift and pop the dome cover off and physically move those cameras, what we can do, since this camera has PTRZ, is we can actually just hit that remotely. And just with a couple clicks of the mouse, we can go ahead and adjust where that lens is looking. We have some panoramic cameras. So when I say panoramic, there's actually 4 lenses built into these models, and those lenses stitch together to create one image. So when you're looking at it, the final product from your video management system, you're looking at really just one picture, even though there's 4 lenses making that up. And we can do 220 degrees from there, or most commonly what we see is 180 degrees. And this is a model that typically gets used outdoors on the side of a building, looking at a big parking lot, where you can just put one of these right on the flat face of the building and capture that whole parking lot, depending on the size of it, right? And of course, our biggest camera here. So this one's been nicknamed the UFO camera or the spaceship camera, but essentially it has 5 lenses built in. So we have 4 built into that ring around the top. And then the 5th one's a pan tilt zoom camera in that bubble down below. So the nice thing about this is we can set those 4 lenses around the top to just be fixed views. That pan tilt zoom can of course be controlled remotely. We can take control of that, move it around, zoom it. But we can also make that work in conjunction with the other cameras so that you don't have to man that PTZ. You can have that work for you automatically if you set up analytics on any of these 4 lenses. So we can do like a line crossing or an area enter on one of these fixed lenses and tell that PTZ to go zoom in and follow somebody when it sees a person in a specific area. You can even break that down by hours too. So if you only want that PTZ to go zoom in on a specific area during certain hours when there's a person, you can do that. So that's the quick overview of multi-sensor cameras. Once again, these cameras are extremely popular. They're high demand, and if you're looking to upgrade cameras at your facility, there's a good chance your IPS sales rep or myself would absolutely recommend using some of these. All right. So next I want to jump into recording solutions. And so I'll touch on our WiseNet Wave VMS. So Wave, and I say VMS, if you're not familiar, stands for Video Management Software. So this is the software that you would use to record your cameras, to view your cameras, and manage your whole system as far as users go and all that fun stuff. And I'll get into all of that right here, but I truly believe this is the easiest piece of software for any video surveillance system in the entire industry. Obviously, I'm biased, but I think IPS can kind of back me up on that one. And we're always happy to provide you a demo as well. So I'll actually be providing you a live demo today, but if you did want to truly test it with any of your existing cameras, depending on what cameras you have, we can always help provide you free demo licenses so you can test it and get your hands on it as well. But let's talk about what Wave is. So there's several different components here, and starting on the right-hand side, I'll talk about the server. So the server is your physical piece of hardware that has your hard drives in it that all those cameras come back to and record to. We can put up to 128 cameras on a server, and we can of course have multiple servers on a system if you've got multiple sites, or even more than 128 cameras at one site. Now, there's a couple different ways we can access those cameras. You can do it from a mobile app. So WiseNet Wave Mobile is the mobile app. You can download it from any app store with your smartphone. We've got a desktop software. So from your Mac computer, from your Windows computer, or from your Linux-based computer, you can utilize the desktop software, and we can go ahead and view all of our cameras and completely manage our system from right there, whether you're on site or remote. Now, Wave Sync is our free way to cloud manage that. So this enables us to utilize our cloud to get access to that server remotely. So we can be completely offsite if our server is in Cincinnati, Ohio, but we're on vacation in Florida. We can go ahead and pull up our mobile app or pull up our desktop software from our laptop, and connecting via Wave Sync in the cloud, we can access our entire system just like we're sitting on site in Cincinnati. Now we utilize a method that we refer to as the server hive when we have multiple servers. So I mentioned we can put 128 cameras on one server. If you want to exceed that, we can do 2 servers, or sometimes what we'll do if you're truly worried about your server maybe failing, and those cameras are critical. If your server fails, obviously any camera that's on that server is compromised at that point. It won't record if the server's down. So what we can do is we can actually have 2 servers either at the same site or different sites. And over the network, if one server goes down, we can actually have all of those cameras jump over to the other server automatically without you touching anything and start recording there. So this is what we would call failover, and this is a free feature within Wave. A lot of other VMSs out there have this, but they do charge for it. So that's a nice thing about Wave and what we do to truly make sure your cameras are recording if they're critical. Desktop, I'm actually in the software now, and I'll show it to you what it looks like with cameras and users and all that stuff in a second here. So I'll skip over that slide. I mentioned Wave Sync a minute ago, so this is just our way to cloud manage the system remotely. So you can connect from anywhere, and really you just utilize your email address. So you have an email address and a password to log in. If you forget your password, you click the Forgot Password button to reset it. Whether you're an administrator or whether you're a low-level user on the system, you can manage your own password over Wave Sync. As far as licensing goes, so if we want to talk cost for a second, obviously IPS would give you your price and your official quote, but just talking about the structure of how licensing works with Wave, we do not license based on number of servers. We do not license based on number of clients. When I say clients, I mean computers that you're accessing it from. And then we also do not do tiered versions. Meaning a basic level license if you just need to do basic things, or an enterprise level license if you need to do advanced things within the software. We don't do that. And I start by making that clear because most VMSs will do one or all of those 3 things when they charge licensing. And at the end of the day, that's just going to add up costs and make the system more expensive. Our licenses never expire. And I'm talking about all these things that our licenses are not, but to clarify, the way we do license is per camera. So for example, if you have 30 cameras on your entire system, you just need 30 licenses. And the nice thing is those licenses never expire. So if you want to upgrade cameras in the future, all you have to do is use that same license again. It's not tied to that camera. So you can remove it from one camera and apply it to the new camera as you upgrade. Updates to the software are always free. So we come out with 2 to 3 big updates per year. And really those updates just make your system better. They will possibly improve bug fixes, but more importantly, they'll always bring new features to the software. So your system 5 years from now will be better than the system the day you bought it.
Question.
Sure.
Those updates, are they automatically pushed out, or is there any work required either on the part of the user, or does IPS need to come out and make a visit?
Yeah, so anybody that's an administrator on the system that has that top level access to it, they would just go into the updates pane, and it's a simple click. And I can show you that here in a minute when I
Gotcha.
get into the live demo. But yeah, it's a simple click to update your system, and you can do that whether you're remote or whether you're on site.
Cool.
We talked a little bit about multi-sensors. So the nice thing with our VMS is that we look at a multi-sensor as just one license. If it's just one camera, one housing, it's one license. So you can have a camera that has 4 or 5 views in it, and it's still just one license. We treat that the same way as we would a single small dome camera. All right. So I'm actually in Wave right now, and what's kind of neat about Wave is we can import pictures. So that's what I did here to show you those slides. I imported each one of those as a picture into Wave, and you can actually pull your cameras into the same layout right next to it. So if I want to start adding cameras to this, I can do that, and I'm in a layout right now, so I can do all kinds of fun stuff with it to resize any of these. And of course, if I want to pull one up full screen, I can double click, I can make it go right back. But the real life application and why you might pull pictures in next to it is if you're in more of a retail application and you want to have some sort of marketing up next to a camera on a public view monitor, maybe you do something like this, where you have a few pictures over here. Maybe it's the sale of the day at the store that you're in, right next to the image of you walking into the store, so you know you're on camera, right? If you ever walked into a CVS or a Target, you see yourself on camera as you walk in. So a lot of things you can do there. But when it comes to building a layout, it's pretty simple. You just select the cameras from your tree on the left-hand side here. And just to kind of go over the tree real quick, I'll collapse it for a second here. At the very top where it says Legacy Tech Center, that's the name of the system that I'm currently logged into. So this is a real life system that I'm in right now. It's actually up in the Cleveland area. And then it has the user that's currently logged in. So that's myself and my email address. But below that, we can see each server that's on the system. Now, this system just has one server, but like I said before, we can have multiple servers. So if you have multiple sites or multiple servers at one site, you can have them all appear right here as part of one system. And of course, as I hit the drop down there, I can start to see all of the cameras that are on this server. And I've even got some folders that those cameras are organized underneath. But what's nice about Wave is if I take my cursor and hover it over any one of these cameras, you can see it's giving me a live thumbnail of what that camera is actually looking at in this moment. So before I even open it up, I can get an idea of what that camera is truly looking at. And then of course, if I want to add it to my layout over here, all I have to do is double click. And you can see it just populates it over there. Now, you saw me do it before, but if I want to resize a camera, all I have to do is take my cursor to the corner, click, drag, and I can go ahead and resize. Maybe I want to make this one a little bit bigger to fill that in. And there we go. If that's the layout that I like, what I can do is I can right click, I can save current layout as, and I can name this whatever I want. So if I want to name it, I don't know, test layout, I can do that. I'll just hit cancel for now, but we can come down here to layouts, and you can see all of the layouts that I've created in the past. And if I want to refer back to it and open one up again, I can just go ahead and double click it and pull that one in. And what's nice is you can see we actually have a camera offline at this site. So this is actually one of our demo sites, and they're constantly taking old cameras down, putting new cameras up, and this was an older camera that they took down, so no longer active, but it's pretty neat. So you can go ahead and reference all of your layouts from here. One thing that we can do that's kind of nice is we can import a floor plan into the software, and we can lay our cameras out on a map. So if this is a blueprint of your facility, we can go ahead and choose whatever cameras we want. Maybe I'll take this one and say this is on the outside corner over here, and size it up however I want it to be on that map there. So I can reference that. So if you have someone logging into the system and they're not all that familiar with where each camera is, this just kind of helps them visualize, okay, that's the camera on the west corner there. And of course, if we want to pull it up full screen, it's a simple double click and then double click again to take it down. If you want to take it up just a little bit bigger, it's a single click and then a single click to take it back down. So we can truly customize this layout however you see fit. And you may have noticed up at the top, Wave is tabular. So you can see I now have 4 tabs open up as I just opened up another one here. But it's the same idea as a web browser on your computer. So if you're in Google Chrome or Internet Explorer, whatever you use, how you open up multiple tabs as you're doing different things on the web, it's the same idea here. You can have as many tabs open as you'd like. And then I can go ahead and pull in whatever cameras I want. So let's pull in just a single camera for now. I actually want to grab this other one. Looks like they put their Christmas tree right in the middle of the hallway. Seems like a good spot for it. But when it comes to looking at recorded footage, obviously everything I've shown you so far is just live footage. So when I pull a camera in, this is live. This is live right now, actually. But what's nice is I don't have to go into a separate menu to look at recorded footage. All I have to do is utilize the timeline down below. So you can see everywhere that's green has video recorded on this camera. And you can see November 2020 or November 2023. And then we go back to about the 20th or the 19th of that day on this timeline. Now I can adjust this timeline by clicking the plus sign to zoom in and then move along it here. But what most people like to do is look at a calendar. So I can pull up our calendar icon here, go back, and you can see November 19th is the last green day. So it's the last day that we had video. Now I can select whatever day I want. Let's pick, I don't know, Tuesday, the 5th of December. That was yesterday, or yeah, today's Wednesday. So that was yesterday. When I selected that day, we've got a 24-hour period across this timeline. So you can see midnight to midnight. And then it even gave me the option to select a specific hour. So if I want the 8 a.m. hour on that day, when I click that, now I'm looking at 60 minutes across this timeline. 8 a.m. on the left, 9 a.m. on the right. So from here, I can go ahead and select 8:10 in the morning. And there we go. Now I'm looking at recorded footage, 8:10 in the morning. You can see someone getting into work that day. So it's quick and easy to get where we want to go. Now, another thing that's pretty unique about the system is the way we can search through this video quickly based on when motion was happening. So if I hover my cursor over this video, I've got all these icons up top. And if I hover my cursor over any one of those icons, it's going to tell me what it'll do. This one says motion search. So I'm going to click that. And you may have noticed a couple things happen when I click that. Down below, I've got all this red on my timeline now. So I'll zoom in a little bit more. And you can see it's just playing through the red clips. So red is when there's motion happening. Anytime there's red on that timeline, there's motion happening somewhere. But then over here on the right-hand side, every thumbnail that you see is a motion clip. So I can also scroll through these. And if I see a thumbnail that interests me, I can click it. Looking for someone close to the camera here. Maybe I'll just pick this one, see what's happening here. I'll double click that. You can see our person in the distance. Now, if we see, or let's say this, so if we want to narrow down the motion search and instead of looking at all the motion that's happening on the backside of the hallway, maybe we just care about what's happening up front here. What I can do is click and drag to highlight a specific area. And now our motion search is going to ignore any of the motion down there and only show me the motion clips in this area that I highlighted. And you can see it's just playing through it. I'm not clicking to go to the next one, so it's just automatic at this point. And here's my thumbnails again. Maybe I want to see what this lady was doing. And if that video is important, I can click and drag on my timeline, right click, and then I can export that video. I can save it to my computer. I can protect it with a password if I want. So if it's super confidential and you only want somebody to be able to view it if they have that password, you can of course apply that. Decide where you want to save it on your computer, and then what file type you want. Now, typically, we've got every file type in here, but typically I'll recommend using the .exe. That's an executable file type. What that means is that one file is going to have two things in it. It's going to have that video clip, of course, but more importantly, it's going to have the player with it. So you don't have to worry about the person who's receiving that clip having the right player to view that video on it. All right. A couple other things we can do on video. I'll actually go to outdoor camera here. And this is one of those multi-sensor cameras that I was talking about earlier. So it's got 4 lenses built into it, stitched together. And this is a perfect application for it. You're looking at a parking lot and it's just one camera to view that whole parking lot. Now, another icon that we have up here says create zoom window. And so that allows us to essentially blow this image up in a specific area. So I can draw a box around that dumpster there, and it gives me a whole nother window just based on that box. Now I can move that wherever I want. So if I want to look at those vehicles in the back of the lot, I can do that. Or if I want to create multiple boxes, I can start doing that as well. So it really allows us to grab more detail out of an image while still seeing that full image of what the camera can see. All right. Any questions on playback or zooming in or anything related to looking at video? Awesome.
Any questions out there? There's nothing in the chat.
Not a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and hop into a different system where I'm the administrator. And that way I can show you some of the administrator functions here. And one that came up earlier was updates to the system. So from here, all I have to do is if there is a newest version, which it looks like on this system, I do have a version. I'm backdated a version, so I can upgrade it. And to do that, all I have to do is click download, and it's going to install the new version on both the server, which is once again, the piece of hardware that's recording all that footage, and the client, which is my computer that I'm connected on right now. So if I was to do that, it's going to probably take a minute or two, especially on a smaller system like this. But on a bigger system, it might take a few minutes to go through that and get it up to speed. And then it's going to reboot, right? So it's quick and easy to do. You can do it remotely or on site. Another thing I'll go over is users. So if you're an administrator on the system, you can see all of the current users you have. You can create new users. So we can do it 2 ways. A local user can only access this system and log in if they are local on your network. So pretty much if they are on site. So you would create their username, you would create their password for them, and you would assign a role to them if you want them to be an administrator or something less than that. Now, the other type of user we can do is a Wave Sync user. So this is what I was talking about when I mentioned cloud managed. And we can do this to set up users to be able to see that system remotely, whether they're on site or whether they're off site somewhere. So for this, it's a lot easier. All we have to do is type in their email address and give them a role. If you want them to be an admin or something less. Now, when I say a role, I'll show you what I mean by that. And I typically use receptionist as an example. Now I could also use security guard or something else there, but I'll keep it with receptionist for now. If we want to set the receptionist of our facility up with a user so they can see a few cameras, I'll name it that. Now permissions. So what kind of permissions do we want this receptionist role to have? Do we want them to be able to edit camera settings? Probably not. Do you want them to be able to view archived video? That's all your recorded footage. If you uncheck that, they can only view live footage. If I check it, it'll allow me to also give them access to export video and do a few other things there. But I can also narrow it down to limiting them or not limiting them on controlling a pan tilt zoom camera, or if I have cameras that have two-way audio where you can talk through them, maybe like a video intercom at the front door. You want to give them access to that so they can talk to somebody on the outside and maybe unlock the door. You might want to give them access to that. But we can also narrow down what cameras they have access to. So if you just want that receptionist to have one camera, and maybe that's just the camera at the entrance of the facility, you can just give them access to that one camera. Now, when they log in, all they're going to see on the left-hand side is that one camera. The other ones aren't going to be grayed out. They're just not going to exist at all. And then also, if you've created any layouts on your system, you can share that entire layout to this user as well. So all I'll do is give them the receptionist role since I created that. And as soon as I hit OK down here, email gets sent to that email address that you type in there. And honestly, if they've ever signed up for anything online before in their life, they can figure it out from there, because it's just going to prompt them to create their own password. And then it'll provide them information on how to download the software if they're on a computer, or the mobile app if they're using that from their phone. And then of course they just log in using their email and their password. So pretty simple. So that's a lot of the administrator stuff there. And you can see your users over here on the left-hand side if you're an admin on the system as well. And it's kind of nice. So I can even open my layouts here and I can drag and drop to share that layout with the receptionist. And so now I can see they've got that shared layout there too. So neat stuff. That's kind of the quick overview of Wave. Like I said, it's very easy to use. It's simplistic. And if you have cameras at your current facility and you're potentially looking to upgrade your VMS and want to look at Wave as a potential solution for yourself, I'm always happy to provide demo licenses. And those would be good for 30 to 60 days, depending on the license I provide, so you can test it. So just reach out to your IPS sales rep and we can help coordinate that. And one last thing I wanted to go over, and I wanted to touch on this last after you kind of understood Wave. And this, I'll go to our website to show it off, but this is a new technology that we have called SolidEdge. So now SolidEdge allows us to utilize a very specific camera. That camera is going to essentially act as a Wave server. So I mentioned Wave is server based, where those cameras would record to a server somewhere. Well, we get a lot of end users that don't want a big physical beefy server. Maybe they don't have room in their IT rack for it, or they just simply don't want one, right? So they start looking at cloud solutions, because with the cloud solution, you typically don't need a server. So this is our way to provide a serverless solution. So this camera here, I'll scroll down a little bit, but this camera here is available basically as a camera and a server with 1 terabyte of storage built in or 2 terabytes of storage built in. So this one camera acts as an entire Wave server. We can access it remotely from our phones, from our computer, and everything I just showed you within Wave, you can do without the need for a physical server. And so with this one camera, we can record up to 5 additional cameras. So whether these additional cameras are Hanwha cameras or whether they're another brand, we can record them to that one SolidEdge camera. So essentially we can have up to 6 video streams recording to that one SolidEdge camera. But I mentioned with Wave, we can have multiple servers on a single system. So now we can actually combine multiple SolidEdge cameras, each with other cameras recording to them, all to one system. So from one pane of glass, we can actually have a system of up to 180 cameras, because we can combine 30 of these SolidEdge cameras together. So 180 cameras on one system without a single server anywhere. So this would all be managed through WaveSync. So like I mentioned before, that's our cloud management. So we can push updates, manage users, view remotely, do all that remotely just over the cloud. Easy to set up, just utilizes our Wave software there. And of course, cybersecurity is at the top of everything we do. So we make sure we meet all the compliancy there. And like any of our cameras, they're very durable cameras. We have humidity control, a hard-coated bubble on them, and even some lightning protection in the port. So that gets us to 10:53. I wanted to leave a few minutes for questions at the end, or anything else you want to go over. So if I didn't go over something that you were hoping to hear about today, now's the time to bring it up, and I'm happy to go in whatever direction you'd like.
Cool. Are there any questions out there? You can drop them in the chat, hop on your mic, text me, email me. One question here is, earlier in the presentation, you talked about the analytics. And the question is, are those included, or do you pay like per analytic?
Great question. Yeah, because that's not consistent across the industry. Some manufacturers will charge for analytics that come on cameras. We do not. So any of those AI analytics that I mentioned, if you buy the camera that has it, it comes at no extra charge. So it's just built into the camera. It's native to the camera, and we don't charge at all for that. So great question. I'm glad you brought that up. I should have mentioned that when I was going over it.
No problem. Are there any other questions out there? I know it was a lot of information, so it's totally fine if you reflect and then think on it and come up with something. You are more than welcome to reach out to me or your IPS account rep. And if we don't know the answer, we will loop in Brandon, the expert, and get you what you need. So, oh, we might have one. Are all these cameras connected via RJ45?
Yeah, so any IP camera would be connected that way. We do also have analog cameras as well. So let's see here. Show you that on our website real quick. But if you have, let's say, an outdated, I don't want to necessarily say outdated, but if you have an older system where you're using BNC and coax connections, we can upgrade that system utilizing our HD Plus series. So this allows us to continue using that same infrastructure, but upgrade you from old analog low resolution cameras to high definition. So we can go ahead and utilize any of our HD Plus cameras to do that, and really bring you into more detail in your facility. So you're not completely out of luck if you got coax out there, but we do try on any new install, and whenever possible, IPS and myself, we like to recommend using IP cameras that would be connected with RJ45s.
Okay, and then a few follow-up questions. Is the power run through the RJ45, or will we need to run separate power?
Yeah, good question. So we utilize what's called PoE, power over Ethernet. So it would run through that RJ45, that cat cable that's got the RJ45 connector on the end of it. It would power that way unless you have a very specialty camera. So like some of our high powered cameras like that 5 lens camera will provide an extra power supply. And typically that's going to just be a little box that we put in line with that Ethernet cable to boost the power of it. But we also can power a lot of our cameras over 12-volt DC if we have a very specific application where we need to power it that way.
Okay. Next question in the chat is, are there any problems using range extenders?
No, I would just want to make sure with the camera that we're using, that we're with the range extender, we're able to continue pushing the necessary wattage to that camera. So if you got a very specific application, let's talk about it, and what camera we're going to use and what that range extender is.
Okay. Let me check my text. No questions there. No questions on my email. Okay, if there are no final questions, then we can go ahead and wrap up here for today. Again, thank you everyone for joining.
Taylor.
Yep.
Hey, Taylor.
I
This
spoke
is
to you
Jason
soon.
with IPS.
Yes.
Sorry. I just had one question for him. Can you put the WiseNet software on any server?
Any Windows
Like
or Linux server, yes.
I have a
Yeah,
customer that has a pre-existing server already that they just bought and they want to use it. So that's why I was asking.
yeah, great question. So yeah, and we do that a lot where if a customer has a different VMS and they bought a server for that VMS, well, you don't always have to replace that entire server. As long as it's a Windows or a Linux operating system on it, we can pull the other VMS off of there, just uninstall it and upload Wave to it, and just simply purchase however many licenses you need for it without replacing the entire server.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Any other final questions? Give it a minute this time. Okay. With that, I will go ahead and conclude things. Again, thank you to everyone. Thank you to Brandon. That was a lot of great information. I will get the link to the recording out to everyone so that way you can go back and reflect. You can share it with a coworker. And then if you find that you need a little more information, you want a more in-depth demo of Wave, anything like that, please do reach out to either myself or your IPS account rep, and we will work with Brandon to get you what you need. So with that, I wish everyone a good rest of their Wednesday. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.